present study of the Song of Songs brings us to chapter 6, verses 4 to 10, where the New International Version says, "You are as beautiful as Tirzah, my darling, as lovely as Jerusalem, as majestic as troops with banners. Turn your eyes from me, they overwhelm me. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, not one of them is missing. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. 60 queens there may be, and 80 concubines, and virgins beyond number. But my dove, my perfect one, is unique, the only daughter of her mother, the favourite of the one who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed. The queens and concubines praised her. Who is this that appears like the dawn, fair as the moon, bright as the sun, majestic as the stars in procession?" In the last study we suggested that the previous poem in the Song of Songs was included in this collection to reflect some of the early experiences of the newly married couple as they are imagined in this book. That poem reflected realistically on the difficulties encountered as two became one, not least in bed, while also describing a deepening mutuality between the two, such that the bride and her husband found it difficult to conceive of life without the other. But that song is one which, except for the intervention of the chorus, was wholly devoted to the young woman's experience. All that now changes. Although interpreters and versions differ among themselves, it seems best to see the song before us in this present study as entirely the words of her husband. And one is immediately struck by the fact that the language echoes that of chapter 4, verses 1 to 15. The words of the young husband when, as we suggested there, his bride undressed herself before him for their first time on their wedding night. This poem is, however, shorter and less erotic, and has led some students of the book to conclude it is an inferior version of the earlier song. But it's far better to ask the question why the author or collector of these songs considered this poem to be appropriate for inclusion here. If our reconstruction of the Song of Songs is correct, the present poem is located at a point in the young couple's relationship where, after some difficulties, they've experienced renewed sexual intimacy. The effect of that encounter may well have left them, for the moment at least, sated. From the husband's perspective, he has entered his wife and she has offered herself afresh to him in a delighted exchange. But there is more to their relationship than a tumble in bed, enjoyable as that undoubtedly may be. And so far, understandably, the young man's hormones have dominated his perspective and his words. Here, however, during an interlude, when his desires have perhaps ebbed, he looks once again at his bride and speaks of her with a tenderness which shows that he longs for her not simply for good sex, but for who she is. His comments reflect the fact that he longs to have her with him as a lifelong friend, not simply for available sex. Tirzah was once the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, whereas Jerusalem was the capital of Judah, the southern kingdom. The comparison made by the young man in verse 4 may be that he claims that the memorable beauty of both these great cities was eclipsed by that of his wife. There may too be an allusion to the fact that Tirzah means pleasantness, and Jerusalem could be said as the city which was perfect in its beauty, as for example in Psalm 50 verse 2. Together then the reference to these two cities may be intended to describe the companionable beauty of the young woman who is now his wife. The last part of verse 4 is not easy to translate, and so it's difficult to understand the point being made, but central to every possibility is that the words convey the sense of fascination and awe. Consequently, what we have described here is the young man awakening to the fact that beyond and even in the intimacy of their experiences in bed, he has been drawn into a tantalizing encounter. This promises that their life together will always be accompanied by new and exciting surprises and a pleasant companionableness that will bring deep and lasting satisfaction at the profoundest level. So he's overwhelmed by her beauty and fascinated almost to the point of worship with this young woman, his darling one. Indeed, as his words continue to pour out in verses 5 to 9, he speaks of being still more overwhelmed by her beauty than on the day he married her. He compares her favourably with a host of cover girls. Then as now, the wealthy were accompanied by the greatest beauties in the land. In the recent wedding, many of the women attending the feast may have been dressed to look like princesses or top models. As far as the young man is concerned, however, his wife is incomparable. Favoured by her mother, she is now his own incomparable queen. So much is this so that in the final verse of this song, verse 10, he now compares her not to beautiful cities but to goddesses. His love then has matured from that of urgent passion to profound devotion. This, we may suggest, is the language of which permanent relationships are built. And that is the point of this poem. The Song of Songs has been uninhibited in its description of sexual passion. It is affirmed that such passion is a driving force in what we might call the mating game. It is also described with beauty and tenderness, arousal and consummation in ways that provide a profoundly theological perspective. Sexual desire is depicted as a God-given part of what it means to be human beings created in the image of God. Indeed, sexual passion, it suggests, offers an insight into the very nature of God and his ways. However, as the poems take us beyond the marriage bed into the days that follow, those desires fulfilled and re-experienced are seen not merely as an end in themselves. They become a vehicle for a deepening interpersonal relationship which opens up previously unimaginable vistas. Despite the occasional hiccup resulting from the fact they are still two different people, the young couple discover an ever-renewed and satisfying delight and companionship in one another that promises to keep the fires of mutual love burning ever more brightly as the years pass. And in this too, we are surely intended to catch a glimpse of the spiritual life